the infinite embraces the process. The resting is about allowing, letting, trusting the process. Allowing this creative energy to take time to fertilize and take form. And so if we want to stay engaged fully in the creative process, we need to be intentional about taking time to rest in a spiritual way. Thank you so much. Lovely to have you here, Carl. My gratitude and appreciation for the team. And wow, such a perfect message, eh? Because we're talking about creativity today. We are talking about the creative process. This is the third part in a 5-part series on Unity's 5 basic principles. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge, we have a tendency to think, well, this is what the Fillmores taught. It actually is not. The 5 principles were pulled together by Reverend Connie Fillmore, their great-granddaughter, because she was then president of Unity School of Christianity, and people were asking for some sort of distillation of Unity's basic teachings. So what the Fillmores taught is embedded in all of those, but the Fillmores didn't teach it in quite this way. So, it's always good to have a little bit of history, right? So 2 weeks ago, Reverend Tommy came and he spoke about our first principle, that there is only one power, one presence in the universe. We think of it as God, as good, the omnipotent. It is everywhere present. There is no place in the created cosmos that God does not reside. God is. And the second principle unfolds from that. God is seeking expression in this universe through each and every one of you, each and every one of us. If we would simplify the first principle to God is, we could simplify the second principle to I am. I am the created expression of God, of the infinite, of Source. I am here to give expression to God as only I can do. That is true of every single one of us. Something to keep in mind when you're having a little difficulty with someone, right? Maybe we could stop and pause and rather than trying to fix them, wonder, how is God seeking to express through this individual? How can I seek to support that? And so if God is this infinite presence, everywhere present in each and every one of us, and we are here to give expression to God, then we have some power, some ability to give expression to that through what we usually say as our thinking. Our thoughts, our minds, our intentions have creative energy, creative power. And for me, thinking is not enough. Thinking is an intellectual exercise and important. But there is an expression that needs to be pushed out into the universe. And that's what we are called to do as we engage this third principle, which is sometimes referred to as thoughts held in mind create after their kind. How do we take this energy of God, this energy of of wholeness and utilize it in our world. And to engage this principle, I really want to dig into the first chapter of Genesis, because Unity's metaphysical teachings on the creative process are grounded in the very first chapter of Genesis. And I want us to acknowledge that this is an ongoing process, something that is continually happening, and that we have a part to play in it. And when Fillmore talks about this creative process, he says, man, in his forming and bringing things into manifestation, uses the same creative process that God uses. First in mind, then the idea in mind, then the materialization of the idea. This is what we're about all the time. Sometimes consciously, sometimes maybe not so consciously. So let us begin by hearing these words that begin our Bible. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep. In the beginning, before anything that we know existed, there was this formless void, this endless, infinite energy of creative possibility. And as the story goes on, of course, we hear the words, and God said, let there be light. Let there be light. From this vast darkness, let something emerge. And it's important to understand that this isn't a one and done kind of event. Eric Butterworth, in his book, The Creative Life, does a beautiful distillation of the creative process. And he says, creation is not something God does or did. It is what God is. It is what you are. Think about that. Let there be light. It is an energy that is ongoing and that is inherent in each and every one of us. Each of us is here to move that light out into the world. And that light depends on an inner connection with Source. There's this beautiful story in the book A New Seeing of the World, written by Jacques Lucirand. At age 8, he lost his sight completely. The world was, for him, a darkness, a void. And navigating in this world was tricky. But then he made a discovery. If he focused on the inner light, if he focused internally on the light that he was, he had very little difficulty moving about in the world. He also discovered that he could not access that light. He couldn't find it in himself unless he was in a space of love. Love. God is love. We are expressions of God. We are expressions of love. We are here to move the light and the love of God out into the world. And how do we do that? How do we take this whole creative process and give it life? The next phase of the creative process is when God says, "Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters." In some translations, this is the firmament. And if you go and you look at the concept in the ancient world, water symbolized chaos. It also symbolized possibility. It also symbolized the beginning of creation. And so when the dome appears, it separates the waters. It begins to form a conception of what is possible. And so the second part of the creative process is about faith, is about believing, and it's not about believing in something, but turning to that divine creative power within you. It is about aligning yourself with the bright vibration of energy, of all that God is, of all that you are, whether you're looking for prosperity or healing or wisdom and guidance. All of that exists in every aspect of the created universe and in you. So we want to put our faith in that and ground our creative process in that. And we will be looking at that more deeply next week as we talk about prayer and meditation. Next, let the dry land appear. The dry land is metaphysically the beginning of a thought, the beginning of an idea. It's not fully formed. Fillmore talks about God ideating, creating an energy, an idea, and man thinking. We begin to take that divine idea and wrap our heads around it, wrap our hearts around it, and begin to put it into play. And Emily Cady, in her book, Lessons in Truth, says this: every desire in your heart is God, Spirit, Source, knocking at the door of your consciousness, inviting you to a deeper expression. A little bit of a paraphrase there. I didn't look up the quote. But the idea here is that whatever our hearts desire, the answer is already there. That what we want to do is not try and force it into being, but to place ourselves inside the awareness of that desire. Whether it's love or wisdom or understanding or peace, we want to immerse ourselves in that energy. We want to begin the creative process by working from the inside to the outer. And it's so easy to try and reverse the process and try and force stuff to happen out there. But what we're invited to do as expressions of God is to start within. I'm reminded that Emerson said that you are an inlet and can become an outlet of all there is in God. Pretty amazing idea. You are an inlet. Everything that God is exists in you. And you can become an outlet. You can move it out into the world. Wonderful concept. Bearing with it a lot of responsibility because it calls us to place our awareness in the consciousness of the transcendent solution. It calls us not to get stuck in what seems to be going awry, but to immerse ourselves in what we're seeking to give expression to and seeing it fulfilled in the now moment. You know, we talk in Unity about the future is not somewhere out there that you're going to get somewhere in the future and your prayers will be fulfilled. It is a present moment reality. Put your consciousness there. And then God said, let there be lights in the dome of the sky. Separate the day from the night. The two lights in the sky, of course, are the sun and the moon. Metaphysically, the sun is spiritual understanding. The moon is a reflection of the sun. And the moon is will. It's not human will. It is a willingness to be part of the dance of creation. It's a willingness to engage with spirit in this co-creative journey. It's a willingness to allow Spirit's will, God's will, to be done in, through, and as us. Voltaire said that God is a circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. A circle whose center is right here in every single space in the universe, but it has no end. There is no circumference. So what we want to do is to place our will in that flow of divine energy and allow God, allow the fullness of that light to be expressed through us. Is Jack Frick here? Jack Frick and I discovered a few months ago, our first Unity minister was the same person. It was the late Reverend Charles Roth. He met him in Indiana. I met him in Burbank. But Charles Roth was a longtime Unity minister. He wrote a number of books. There are several of them that are available in the Lending Library. But when he taught creation or prosperity teachings, he said, create the frame. Create the frame. Don't try and fill in every detail. Create the frame, the essence of what you want, and allow God to paint the picture. There is an aspect of the creative process that calls us to engage with Spirit consciously, continuously, so that we can really fully give expression to our essence. The next one is interesting. Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures. There was this burst of creative energy, and all these living things began to show up on the earth. And the swarming creatures in our creative process are ideas that start to pop into our mind. And we may be tempted, because it can be kind of chaotic and confusing, all these different ideas. It can be kind of unsettling, and we may be tempted to try and tamp it down. But this is an important aspect of creativity. God, Fillmore says that God ideates. We think. God doesn't give us things. God gives us ideas. So those swarming creatures may create a little confusion, but they also create a rich realm of possibilities that we can choose to act on. They put us back into the beginning where the waters began to take shape and we become deeply embedded in that process. Jacques Cousteau said, one must have chaos in him or her to give birth to a dancing star. You gotta have a little chaos, you gotta have a little swarming happening if you wanna give birth to the star that you are. And if you take this imagery a step further, and you think about the schools of fish in the sea and how they move, and there's this incredible, exquisite, beautiful dance of unity. That's what we're invited into in this step of the creative process. And then, God said, let us make humankind in our image according to our likeness. Finally, we get to us. Right? This is where humankind appears. All this creative energy. I sometimes like to think about the fact that the universe is, I think it's 6.2 billion years old. It's taken 6.2 billion years to create each one of us. An incredible, rich dance of creativity. And as we are created in the image and likeness of God, we have a mission to fulfill in partnership with the divine. Eric Butterworth says it this way: you and God, you and Source, you and the infinite, whatever you want to call it, are inextricably linked in a mission of co-creation. Even as a wave is the ocean expressing as a wave, so you are the allness of God expressing as you. This infinite creative energy invites us to form waves of co-creative energy, to move out into the world and express the light, the love, the wisdom that God is. It is a journey without end, and it is a journey that is rich in possibility. Your destiny, as part of that co-creation process, as part of your invitation to be the wave, is to give full expression to your unique spiritual identity. And to do this, we need to ensure that our creative process is embedded first in this inner process. To not immediately move out into the outer and try and make everything right, to try and fix it all, but to first see it right, to imagine the possibility, and to allow God to work with us, through us, as us. And then, we're told God rested. Now, if we're used to thinking of God in an anthropomorphic way, like us, as this man in the sky, this kind of superhuman being, it's kind of an odd thing to think about God sitting down, laying down and taking a nap on a heavenly bed, right? I mean, if God is infinite and God is essence of creative possibility that is always moving? Why does God need to rest? Well, the infinite embraces the process. The resting is about allowing, letting, trusting the process. Allowing this creative energy to take time to fertilize and take form. And so if we want to stay engaged fully in the creative process, we need to be intentional about taking time to rest in a spiritual way. Butterworth talks about daily mindful, I love this, daily mindful creative intermissions. Moments where we rest from the outer and go within and just allow ourselves to be. Moments where we let Spirit breathe life into every aspect of our being. Moments in which we celebrate our unique essence and recommit to being the expression of God in this world. Butterworth ends his book with these words: God is happening. Life is happening. I and you are happening. Love is happening. The creative process is an ongoing journey of bringing the light, the love, the wisdom, the peace that we so desire into manifest reality in this world. So this is my invitation to you. You are an incredible being with unimaginable possibilities for creation, for making a difference in this world. Engage the creative process. Live inside the future you want to create. And be the light that you were created to be. Namaste.
Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and I am grateful.